Many American businesses are reporting unprecedented challenges filling open jobs. So joining us to discuss the labor shortage problem is Neil Bradley, Executive Vice President and Chief Policy Officer for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jordan.
Of course. Now, we've all been seeing the now hiring, help wanted signs everywhere, but how bad is the worker shortage problem and how is it affecting our local economy?
Well, I wouldn't call it a worker shortage problem anymore. I'd call it a worker shortage crisis. And that's not a term we use lightly at the U.S. Chamber, but it's one that we think matches the reality on the ground. You know, across the United States, we have 10 million open jobs. That's a modern record, smashing every record for the last 2+ decades. In Florida, there are 426,000 open jobs today. To put that in context, that's more than 1.5 many open jobs today than the average of the last 2 decades. So, you know, we talked to those restaurant owners that you mentioned, right? They're having to only do lunch or dinner service because they don't have the staff to do both. We talked to construction workers, the companies, they're turning down work because they don't have the skilled workers available to complete the jobs that are being asked of them. And even in the healthcare industry, we're having nursing shortage crisis that's holding back our ability to even defeat this pandemic.
So crazy and scary too to think about in the medical field as well. So how do we even begin to address? I mean, obviously we think, okay, well, those people need to go out and get these jobs. But like you said, the training is an issue or maybe even the lack of desire. So what do you think we need to do to begin to address this challenge?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head in the fact that there's not one single answer to this. We had a worker shortage problem before the pandemic. The pandemic has made it worse. In some instances, these enhanced unemployment benefits that have just expired, we're holding people back from re-entering the workforce. For others, it's a lack of access to affordable child care for a working parent that makes it harder for them to get a job. You know, for others, it's a skills gap. They don't have the skills for the jobs that are open. Across the country, frankly, it's a lack of legal immigration. Legal immigration hasn't kept up with our growing economy, and that means that we're not filling many of those open jobs. So there's no one silver bullet answer. We have to right-size unemployment, address child care, address the skills gap. If we begin to do those things, get immigration right, we can begin to address this and get our economy reopened again.
And you mentioned, too, some businesses having to turn people away because they don't have the skill set or the training. So what can be done for people to get the training they need if they do want to go to work?
Well, the most important thing is that we get people training that leads to the jobs that are available in their community. For too many years, we've just simply said job training as if all job training was equal. That's not true. If we have employer-led job training programs, people can be confident that if they're spending their savings or they're taking out a loan to get those skills, that they know it's going to lead to a job. So one of the things that we're encouraging the administration here in Washington and frankly governors across the country is to use the resources they've gotten over the recent months for job training programs to make sure that it is employer focused. That way people can be confident that they're getting skills that lead to a job.
And you mentioned also that before the pandemic, this was kind of already an issue. Now it's even worse. So how is the pandemic affecting, people going back into the workplace, especially for parents dealing with the uncertainty around school? And you mentioned the childcare shortages as well.
Yeah, there's no question. We have fewer daycare centers, fewer slots in the daycare centers that are open today. Schools, they are reopened, but we're having kids that have to quarantine. And when the student has to quarantine, the parents are likely out of work helping them quarantine. So COVID is making this problem worse. Of course, the key to defeating COVID is vaccines. If we get more people vaccinated, we can defeat COVID. And as we defeat COVID, we can really get people back into the workforce and we can put this whole pandemic in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, not everyone can do remote working. Some people, we need them in the brick and mortar stores and restaurants. So where can people go for more information?
I hope folks will visit uschamber.com. That's uschamber.com, and you can learn more about the worker shortage crisis and what we can do to solve it.
Hopefully we can all solve it together. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Jordan.
Of course. And if you'd like to see this segment again or get more information, go to firstcoastliving.net.